Hi, good morning, everyone. I suggest we wait for a few more minutes. I think few more participants are still joining in. So let's wait for a few minutes and start with the session.
Uh, good morning. And I think we will wait for 2 more minutes because we had circulated the link a little late in the morning, right? So give it 2 more minutes and then we start with the audience, whatever we have.
Okay, okay, sure, madam. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So participants, let's wait for 2 minutes. That's it. I think we can start now. A very warm welcome to everybody to this webinar. This is CA Namrita speaking to you all. So, in continuation of the forensic accounting and auditing series, which CA Soham has been taking, we had the first session last week. So, this is in continuation of that session. And today, Soham will speak on the approach for forensic audit and investigations. So, over to you, Soham. Maybe you could just give a brief introduction of yourself and then, start. Yeah.
Thank you, Namrata madam. Good morning, everyone. My name is Soham, and I'm a chartered accountant and a certified fraud examiner. Uh, I started my journey into forensics at BDO, uh, one of the big consulting firms, followed by Grant Thornton. And currently, I am starting with my own venture. I started with my venture of Yellowstone Solutions. I have around 6.5 to 7 years of experience, post qualification experience into forensic audits, investigations, and yeah, looking to share a few of those insights what we have been doing as a part of our practice with you guys on this platform. So, with this background, let's quickly start with the pointers of today's session. Broadly, what we are planning to cover is a quick recap of what we covered in the first session, because this will be a bit in continuation, specifically few basic concepts, a couple of icebreaker questions, followed by the main crux of today's session, which is stages of forensic audit and investigations. We'll just take a flow of exactly what are the different steps which usually a forensic accountant does in his assignments. And lastly, based on the learnings, we'll have a brainstorming session on one of the case studies and try to just see like where are we placed in terms of whether we can kind of explore these assignments or not. So yes, and the ones who have attended the previous session, I would just want to restate the objective of this session, which is primarily to ensure that we are having an engaging and an interactive session, and with the end goal to gain insights into forensic accounting and learn and kind of exchange ideas what we know right now. Like maybe in 2 hours we'll be having few more learnings, like this is the exchange of ideas that we'll be doing. So let's try to make it as interactive as possible, and gain the best out of it. All right then. With this background, a quick recap of the first session, because uh, that was more on the basics and the principles of forensics. So the two pillars of forensic accounting. So basically, it should be a conclusive evidence and a legal evidence whenever we are doing audit. We cannot just put it as it appears to be or based on the data provided and all. So it has to be something concrete which can be used and considered ahead. Secondly, the objective of forensics, like a review of the data, gathering of evidences, something where based on the evidences gathered, observations noted, we can use it, to provide recommendations to the management, to the clients, and make sure that those recommendations are also implemented. So just on the ground level, what were the objectives? Scope of forensic accounting, where we consider different types of forensic audits and investigations, something like civil investigations, bank audits, transaction audits, asset tracing assignments, litigations, disputes, etc., etc. The fraud triangle, the three components of pressure, rationalization, and opportunity, followed by exactly what are red flags, categories of red flags, etc., etc. And lastly, we got a chance to discuss on few of the recent fraud cases of PNB, ILFS, THFL, and PMC. So this was the flavor and the pointers, key pointers, which we had discussed last time. And that brings us to the first pre-introduction question. Uh, I would want all of you guys to share whatever thoughts they have and try to kind of, like use this platform to share our ideas for you. So the question is, if you were tasked with auditing a company with a history of financial irregularities, where would you start? So I'm pretty sure somewhere or the other in our either in our articleship journey, in our last like post qualification journey, somewhere or the other, we might have definitely come across where we have been told that यहाँ पे कुछ issues है, लफड़ा है, take care, check the books properly, etc., etc. So what is the approach which you guys usually follow, or like you have come across? Anyone? Okay. I think someone is mentioning that voice is not clear. Can you guys please confirm whether I'm audible now or still there is an issue? Am I audible clearly or there is some echo issue or anything? Hello, hello, hello.
I think it's clear. For me, it's clear.
It's clear, right? Like there's no, because someone mentioned about some echoing issue. Okay, all right. Okay, so let's start with this. Okay, so there are few comments. Bank accounts, related party transactions. So Shika madam, will you be able to kind of elaborate a bit on this? Just like we can create a better discussion out of it, like exactly in terms of related parties. So what do
So,
you
like,
exactly?
I work with the bank, and we have, as an I'm in recovery department only. So, I have seen couple of forensic audit reports, and where we come across that what happens, why this fraud takes place, is like when the company starts diverting the funds to other accounts, and then there comes where we can check the ledgers, and then we can just see whether where the funds are going, and then if we can relate it to the related parties. So that ways we can initiate actually, as in we can just take the trail and go ahead.
All right, absolutely, absolutely bang on. That is one of the aspects. So as you know, like as far as the banks are concerned, completely agree with Madam's point. Any other ideas anyone wants to share their piece with what they would have executed or they've come across? At least one more, guys. Come on. No, it's a small firm. It's not that we are having that 500, 1,000 people. It's a small. Let's try to make it interactive. Like there are just 10 of us. It will genuinely, like it will be more fun. Trust me.
Hello.
Hello. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
this statutory and internal audit reports, review of that.
All right. Statutory, fine, but for internal, any specific thing which you will try to look into in terms of like any specific thing which you think can be helpful?
Specifically in respect of findings that were there earlier, where the compliance is as of now, and any other new findings subsequent to the old findings regarding fraud or
Mm. Understood. So basically, like, can I say that in terms of any critical red flags which the internal auditor has come across, so that
yes.
can be kind of capitalized and like maybe deep, like we can do a deep dive into that particular area. Like that's what I think we mean by internal audit reports, right? Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, all right. So this is basically one of the questions which we will be answering. So the objective is that rather than going through and running through the slides, like if we can just try to, if not at least like sharing over, if you guys can just take a minute to like think of all the things which you have come across. Uh, Other slides will help you answer this question and maybe kind of you'll get a more conceptual clarity of how forensic procedures would start and like how it would end. So all right then. Okay, so let's get going with the procedures over here then. So the entire crux of this session, the stages into like execution of assignments pertaining to fraud investigations, corporate investigations, whistleblower cases, etc. uh, Planning stage, data collection and analysis. Although it's a data collection and analysis, but over here we will be discussing into lots of integrities into digital forensics, how laptops are imaged, what are the things which we review, how it is reviewed. So all those things we'll be discussing in data collection and analysis. Third is the review procedures. Although this is a very wide topic, what we will do is we'll try to break down into certain types of audits, something like investigations, bank audits, etc. And we'll just see like exactly what would be the few areas which we can take into consideration. How a forensic audit is usually like drafted, what are the things which are covered in the report, we'll try to discuss on that. And lastly, assignment closure. So now this is something which is very specific to forensic assignments, where there will be certain expectations which you have at the time of closure. So we'll be discussing upon that. So with this background, let's start with the planning stage over here. So for the planning over here, so uh, uh, just in case if you guys have either mm, like undertaken a forensic audit, seen someone doing it, or have any discussions, just want to share kind of like open the platform here for you guys. So any idea like how a planning in forensic will be different from a regular statutory audit or an internal audit planning? What could be like the main points of differentiator which you guys can think upon? Anyone? Or I'll. Okay, all right. For this planning, so like the first step is basically understanding the scope. So over here, the scope of work. Specifically, in cases where there is investigation, so the scope of work is going to be very specific. Let's say there is a whistleblower complaint. So the management will primarily focus on the aspects of the complaint. What is this complaint about? Let's say, let's take an example of, let's say there is a complaint on the purchase head of a manufacturing entity. So then, like our entire planning and scoping is going to be on the purchase side, and it's not going to be that we'll be looking purchase, sales, everything, books of accounts. So it's not going to be generalized. It's going to be very specific on the complaint or on the expectation of the management why you have been appointed for the assignment. Nature of alleged fraud, assembling the necessary resources, this is the standard one. Enumerate the list of analysis to be performed. So over here, we are specifically talking on the data analysis part, because lots of time, especially when there are assignments of some stockbroker audit, etc. So the line items literally run into 5 lakh, 10 lakh, 15 lakh. So it's not practically possible to use your Excel to get it done. You'll have to use certain data sets. So at the time of planning stage only, it will be making more sense to plan it out, right? That DA team will be involved for this data, and like the expectations can be set straight with the management, in terms of data management and data handling. So that is about it. Identifying the areas requiring immediate and detailed attention, and collecting various audit and investigative reports and media reports. So this one somewhere aligns with what Mr. Hemant mentioned, that like if we have some previous reports in hand which stated some red flags, that will help us kind of set up our procedures in terms of what we target and plan to do for this particular assignment. And also, especially in case of some bank audits or transaction audits on big ticket companies, so there are a lot of media informations which are available in terms of what happened in the case, or something on personal nature, some ED raids, etc., which can be gathered, and like we can try to use that information in our planning as well. Now, second part, data collection analysis. This is something where I believe there is a bit of differentiation in terms of the digital practices which I mentioned. So data classification, data mapping, basically the initial part, trying to understand what is the source of the data provided by the client. Test of controls, tracker for the data provided, a bit of generic. This is something which I believe is a bit unique to forensic. In terms of authenticity of data, uh, imaging tools which are used for collection. It can be either an NCase or FTK. If I put it into perspective as a simple layman language, so basically some tools. So it's not that there is a laptop. Let me just elaborate the case. So basically, in case of investigation where there is an employee investigation done, in our case, in our example of purchase head of a manufacturing entity, so it's not going to happen that you're going to take his laptop, do a copy, paste it into a hard disk and review. Uh, It sounds easy, but there are some specific forensic tools which will copy the data from the hard disk of the employee, laptop hard disk of the employee, into a reviewable format. So some forensic tools are used. So it must be ensured that based on the scope, the planning, data has been collected accordingly. So let's say if there is requirement, the expectation is of this particular employee. So it shouldn't happen that we collect for the entire team and create data mismanagement over there. Data integrity, whenever there is a custodian investigation undertaken, so we need to maintain a chain of custody. So it's basically a form which will mention about the hash values, type of authenticity of data, etc. And this ensures that there is no tampering of the data, because these are all the data points which are going to be used in the court of law. The end goal is every time going to be something where it is going to be used in the court of law. So in case if there is any traces, in terms of alteration, deletion, tampering, then trust me that entire assignment can go into toss, because the data sources of the investigation itself will be questionable in nature. So a very basic point, but extremely critical whenever we are doing any type of forensic audit or an investigation. analysis techniques. This will be more, as I mentioned, in case, like when we are doing some stock broker investigation assignments. So there is this huge chunk of data. So through certain tools, data analysis tools, these long haired, like kind of healthy files needs to be put into simplified nature to perform the analysis. And basic financial analysis, statistical methods and all is the standard things which we also do for other types of audits as well. And tools which we use, this is just as a more of an informative conversation. So there is this ACL tool, idea tool. I would recommend, in case you've not about it, heard about it, after the session, do Google it. So basically these are tools which are used to kind of automate and perform certain analysis by the software itself. So let's say data analysis of some big sales data. So like you see some sets of concentrated customers to whom maximum amount of sales is made. So such types of queries, these tools will be able to produce the results in an automated manner rather than be kind of putting it into Excel, cleaning the data, performing some pivots and all. These tools will directly be able to give you the kind of answers for these types of queries. Visualization tools like Tableau, Power BI. This is more used by the DA teams. And as us, the forensic investigators, one of our key tools, the forensic tool, is Intella. So it's basically a software. So as I had mentioned over here, like forensic imaging tools. So once the data is imaged, so let's say in this case of the purchase head, once the data is imaged, that particular data is then processed and converted into a reviewable format. I'll take it up in the next slide. So basically, these are like just as for our awareness, I'm just like mentioning over here. So there are two main tools. One is Intella and Relativity. So all majority of the big firms investigating, whenever in case if like you're getting a forensic audit done, so just try to see in terms of data or their tools, like tools coverage, will they be able to get the reviews and investigations done through Intella software or relativity software. So these are the two main tools. And just to give a heads up, so an imaging tool usually costs more than a lakh, and this Intella tool just as a dongle. So each review dongle costs approximately 1 lakh rupees. So I mean, like if you are setting up a like this set of services to the clients, this will be the expectation, ideal expectation from the client to provide these services. So more into forensic technology practices. So basically, it gets into 4 stages. The one which I mentioned in the previous slide, opening the electronic data through imaging techniques that can be laptops, desktops, hard drives, and also a lot of times it's about the servers as well. So there is a data on the server. So employee might have deleted it from his or her laptop, but still traces of it will be there in the server. Second is extraction of the image data. This is by way of indexing, deduplication. So there are some specific terms and techniques. What broadly we can extract is emails, Word files, Excel files, picture files, and deleted emails and documents. So anyone, if you come across, if you can share, so like how can, not the technical part, but the logical part, like how deleted emails and documents can be recovered. So like logically, if I delete something, it's gone from the system, right? So like have you guys, any one of you heard about it? Like uh, you know how uh, deleted emails and documents can be recovered? Anyone? Okay, all right. So I want to share this interesting piece with you guys. So whenever in our day-to-day routines as well, so in our laptops, let's keep it like that. So whenever we delete something, although it is deleted from the memory, it is the traces of the images are still there in the hard disk of our laptops. So unless and until a new data is replaced on that empty part of the disk, that traces will still always be existent. So let's say there is a 5 GB data which you have deleted. So unless a new 5 GB of data is replaced there, that traces will be there. So then if you ask me, so like then how can you ensure that something is completely out of the system? Then there is this technique called as cut and paste. So if you delete something, the traces will be there. However, if you cut and paste it somewhere else, then it will be the data will be moved out of the system. Then there will be no traces left. But I'm pretty sure most of the folks, or I'll say most of the fraudsters, are definitely not aware about it. So we are lucky in almost all the cases where we will be getting traces of those deleted emails and documents, and that is a gold dust for us, because usually that gives us a flavor that this was the deleted part. What was the logic to delete this? And a lot of times we see that especially when the person is exiting, or like some allegations are coming up, then just out of conservatism, the period where some mismanagement or fraudulent activities are undertaken, that period data itself is always deleted. So deleted data is something which kind of fast tracks us to getting to solutions for these investigation assignments. Third is developing keywords. So this is a bit of a logical one. So before I comment, I would really appreciate if one of you guys can, like comment exactly, like what should be the, like at least the categories of keywords which we can list. So keywords is something which we'll be preparing a set, and those keywords will be run on that process data through those dongles and review softwares. So what would be the relevant keywords which can be considered, like to investigate, again in our case, let's say for this purchase head of a manufacturing department. Anyone would want to give a shot?
Transfer, withdraw.
Absolutely. So I am mentioning purchase department, right? Head of purchase department and manufacturing entity. So can you kind of, like relate these words and suggest some more keywords?
Production, price, quotation.
Okay.
Output.
Okay. All right. Although these would be relevant keywords, but as sir mentioned, so what happens is that whenever you put a generic keyword, something like production, so what will happen is it will not be able to filter out, because in the laptop of a production head, so every second or third email will be have something to do with production. But something like combination of change production, or cancel production, like something like if we can add a kind of a prefix or suffix to this
Right.
word,
Yeah.
then like suddenly you will start seeing either a nil output, obviously, but somewhere like then instead of change, like a lot of times what we can do is we can see like the kind of a culture, like if this manufacturing plant, let's say if it's located at Punjab, then maybe we can add some local language of a Punjabi over there, or let's say if it's in Gujarat, then you can add a local language of a Gujarati over there, depending. So we can try to make it as customized as possible, and like that will really help us get into like more specific results which we are seeking for.
Yeah. And probably wastage and rejection.
Yes, yes, yes. Rejection and wishes, exactly. So usually when you hit such keywords, what happens is you'll get all those
Yeah, yeah.
rejection reports. So like there will be, let's say you're doing a review of 5 years. So
Right.
as a production head, there will be like thousands and thousands, thousands will be lakhs of emails. So like if you write something like rejection, you will get all the rejection reports, right? And based on those emails, we can try to pick up keywords and add it more. Like based on certain emails, you'll start getting traits that how the conversations are. Like what can be an additional keyword, and then you can update your keyword lists accordingly. And yes, ultimately in the court of law, you cannot say that, okay, I have reviewed the disk and this is the report, etc., etc. The client is not going to, neither the client, neither the court of law is going to accept such kind of comments. So this keywords is a set which needs to be documented. And this will also be submitted in the code of law that these are the number of keywords which you have used for this engagement. These are the hits or these are the emails, documents, etc., which we have got basis these searches, and then this is the ultimate evidence. So still in the data collection and analysis, but these are the things which as a data collection team or the reviewer team needs to make sure that they are documented. And lastly, electronic data review so goes hand in hand. So based on the keywords we'll be like performing these data review and analysis. One more element which I want to share. This is applicable. I'm sharing all these, like aspects over here because other things will be a bit specific to each and every investigation. This is more on the generic conversation. So whenever we are reviewing data, like this extraction of image data, etc. So apart from emails, there is another critical information in the form of images and videos. Now, so these images can be, so whenever a laptop is imaged, so a laptop will have lots of, personal images, official images, etc. All right. And sometimes what happens is that employees tend to, now again depends on company to company policies, but in lots of companies, especially the mid-sized companies, employees tend to save their WhatsApp backups on the laptop. So now if that backup is saved on the laptop and the laptop is imaged, then literally entire WhatsApp backup becomes a part of your data, and at least somewhere as per the data. So anything which is stored in the laptop is company's data. So although you can claim it to be your personal, so it's a company's data. Now I'm not going into that tangent, in terms of data privacy and all that, because there are some nuances to it. But as an assignment point of view, all I can tell is that in case if you come across such data, so what happens is that now your review is not just restricted to company laptop data, but all the WhatsApp images which you have shared. So in case, if you are kind of, enjoying some kickbacks or you are colluding with some vendor, so not going to do through company laptop, but from those WhatsApp images, like the chats exchanged with the vendors, you'll be able to get hold of a lot of critical things there. So yeah, that is something which, as a reviewer, as an employee, or whomsoever you are, this is something which needs to ideally be always taken care of.
Sir, one question. This WhatsApp messages, are they accepted as evidentiary value in a court of law?
No, that's not accepted as an evidence. But like, in fact, I really like, this is an exact question which I would expect. So how it works is that is not used in the court of law, but uh, so whenever we start an investigation, the first question which I had asked there, like, how would you start? So at that time, we don't have any clarity, like, that is there going to be any fraud, there is any fraud or not. So like, we are still trying to gather information, assess, and try to at least form our opinion. So these WhatsApp images, chats, etc., that will help us, give us a direction. So basis those images, let's say, I'm getting that, Mr. X purchase that basically. So he's in constant conversations or colluding with a vendor. So I'll not use that as an evidence. But basis that, what I can do is I will uh, go into that particular vendor ledger, do detailed document searches, do some background checks on that vendor, and kind of determine or gather evidences from there that, okay, see, there is no supporting documentation, or the rates are not appropriate, etc., etc., and thus this is my evidence which can be used in the court of law. So does this answer the question?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right.
Soham, Namrata here. I had a question, right?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
these days are using many data analytics tools and all that. So with respect to forensic investigations, whatever we do, right? So is there any recommended data analysis tool or application? Any thoughts on this?
Uh, 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 you mentioned some word. I have missed out on something. So for forensic
No,
investigation,
the data analytics tools which we normally use for forensic audit and all that,
okay.
or any
Yes.
investigation, yeah.
So madam, for this slide, the previous slide. So there are these tools of ACL, IDEA, the software tools. Apart from that, for specific review of these emails, there is this tool of Intella and Relativity. So most of the assignments in India, the consulting firms either use Intella or Relativity. So these are the two main tools which are undertaken for digital forensic review. And for data analysis, there are some lots of local softwares as well. But usually Power BI and Tableau, and these are the softwares which usually data analytics team uses for forensics.
Yeah, thanks, Soham. I missed the earliest slide.
So the thing is that after these slides, like if we read it interchangeably, it will be a bit,
Yeah.
kind of more adding value. Like if I put this earlier, it would be confusing, and if that is so. I hope like in collaboration, we have got like
Yeah.
at least some information on this.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. So can we move to the next part? Anyone? Any pointers or anything? You want to add something? Ask something? There is something in the chat box. Krishnan says, is the WhatsApp communication allowable? Okay, I think that we like WhatsApp, other if it can be allowed evidence. Uh, so Krishnan, I would want to just clarify. So if you are taking WhatsApp data, the one where I mentioned, where it's from the laptop, I've imaged it and reviewed it. So that is something which is ideally not acceptable in the court of law, again due to those data privacy and all those matters. But Facebook is something which is publicly accessible data. So we'll be taking up that in the later slide. But to answer the question, so let's say in the same case, there is this vendor which I've identified from the WhatsApp, not acceptable in the court of law. But if I check, do their social media screening, and I search for that particular vendor, I see that vendor and this suspected employee, both of them going on to lots of trips together, etc., etc. Just a hypothetical thing, like they are very good friends. Then definitely, like if I see those social media uploads, I can take those screenshots and use it as an evidence in my report and also in the court of law, because that's a public domain information. I'm not doing anything, which is personal or anywhere where I'm breaching the data. Okay. All right. Fair enough. So moving to the next part. All right. So next part is into review procedures. So over here, it's practically not possible to like detailed the steps, because there will be a lot of technical terms. So what I have done over here is just on generic ground, generic things which like which happens in an investigation. So I've broken it into four parts. One is investigation, one is bank audits, one is transaction audits, and one is special audits. So just on the four basic things, what are the review procedures which an individual or a forensic team can undertake? I have tried to highlight it over here. Obviously, the first and the basic disclaimer that every type of investigation is unique. So, like a purchase fraud is completely different from a sales fraud because the approach for the purchases will be completely different from the sales. You know, where one for one entity, I am making the payment, from other I have to collect. So, entire payment setup, differentiates. So, there will be those specific things, basis the scoping and planning which we discussed earlier. So there will be the variation. So that thing needs to be considered. So with this aspect, some basic concepts. Firstly, in case of whistleblower allegations. So I don't want to get into anything further. Firstly, what do you guys have an understanding for whistleblower allegation? What is whistleblower, for who it happens, what does a whistleblower do? Let's kind of spend at least few minutes to understand what is whistleblower, rather than jumping guns on what happens in whistleblower allegations. So anyone, whistleblower allegations, exactly what is it, what is what's a whistleblower mechanism, let's put it like that.
So, in whistleblowing, people can anonymously, raise concerns, governance issues, or any matters that concern
Okay.
company or entity. Yeah.
Yes.
Which
Yes.
is not in favor of the company, maybe. So someone thinks that, okay, whatever has happened, galat hua hai, so they can just use that medium to raise a concern. And there is a committee which will get this investigated, and whatever the result is, appropriate action will be taken if there is merit in the case.
All right. And like as a company, like is there anything mandatory, with respect to whistleblower, or like everyone needs to have a whistleblower? Because like ideally, why will I keep a whistleblower, right? So any idea in terms of threshold or anything, like who, for whom whistleblower is applicable?
Yeah, for the listed companies, they have to publish in the annual report and give a mail ID where the employees or whoever wants to report can report, and that will be decided by an independent committee, which is the audit committee in that case. So that is the mandate for the whistleblower.
Absolutely correct. So wherever there is a listed company, you want it or not, you think your company is absolutely clean, etc., etc., whatever the case may be, a whistleblower mechanism is mandatory. All right, for all the listed companies. Other companies, it is voluntary, or based on their experience or whatever they want to. So they need to set up this whistleblower setup and a committee. And so there are a lot of hotlines which are available for whistleblower. So one is the kind of a software which company maintains, that I can raise my complaint independently, without giving any of my identity. So the issue of identity completely goes away, because that is a biggest concern over here, that whenever someone tries to blow a case, the challenge is that if I am working in the purchase, I can see my purchase manager creating all that mess. But I would obviously want to safeguard my job, right? Because god forbid that case is not proven, I'll lose my job. So the utmost importance is that whenever that hotline is created for the whistleblower, the identity of the complaint maker, basically the whistleblower, is primarily safeguarded. Because if this thing is not there, you will not get complaint itself. And secondly, the whistleblowing need not necessarily only be done by the employee. It can be also done by your vendors, customers, stakeholders, etc. So you can ask that how it is. So a lot of times, from unknown email IDs, vendors try to give a background that I deal with Mr. X. However, this is what we have actually seen those complaints, that there will be some abcxyz@gmail.com. There will be a mail from there on that whistleblower committee, where it is expected that each and every mail be taken seriously. All right. So that they'll mention all the specific details, with respect to that, there is this Mr. X. Whenever we have very good relations with your company. However, in last 2 years, we have seen whenever we deal with Mr. X, the purchase manager, he tends to ask us, for this or that favor, and that's creating your bad repute, etc., etc. So whenever these types of emails are there, it needs to be investigated. You need to maintain a register, and at the end of the year or quarterly, as the case may be, the auditor will be reviewing your whistleblower register, the case register, and what is like the ultimate solution for each and every case. And whenever you investigate and you realize that it's a complex matter, you appoint forensic auditors to kind of investigate into this further. So this is like the basics of whistleblower. So wherever there is a whistleblower allegation, examine the credibility of the whistleblower so as to evaluate the authenticity of the claim. So in the complaint, you have to see like whether it's like generic level statements, or there are some sweat. So whenever there is a genuine whistleblower, he'll give some specific facts. Let's check your purchases. You will see this much. You will see this much of rate variance. We are incurring more and more expenses, and all those things will actually match with your books of accounts. So that is the basis which you can kind of estimate that whether it's a genuine complaint or a fake complaint. Thoroughly investigate other areas linked to whistleblower allegation, as well as to identify other illicit activities. So now for this one, what I will try to again mention is, so let's say purchases. So as per my scope of audit, okay, it's purchases. So I will review the purchase managers data, this, that. But usually a person cannot do anything in isolation. There will be some or the other will be colluding with that person, like within the company, junior, senior, etc. So purchases, a lot of times, let's say in this case, is related to inventories. So if I'm making, let's say, like uh, some quality issues in the purchases, I'm purchasing degraded material from that vendor or from a vendor who is not reputed. So, like there will be issues in my inventory, in terms of inventory damage, loss of inventory, damage of inventory, etc., etc. So, like, like inventory and purchases will be interrelated, and wouldn't be a bad idea based on the evidences obtained that you end up reviewing, the emails and laptops of the inventory department as well, because it seems that there might be an issue over there as well. So conclusion, that thoroughly investigate other areas linked to whistleblower allegations to ensure that you are doing a holistic review and not kind of a narrow review. Thirdly, in terms of issues in window dressing of financial statements, review books of accounts, bank statements, audited financial statements parallelly for the review period. So, any idea why like it's mentioned as parallelly for the review period? Like books of accounts, bank statements, and audited financial statements. So what can be one of the reasons, or one of a very basic thing which you can identify by doing this review?
So unaudited financial statements may be giving a very rosy picture. Is it because of that?
Yes, that is possible, but that is why I have mentioned audited financial statements. So basically, let's say I am currently okay, FY20, still audits will be going on. Let me put it as FY23. So you have audited. So there is a review period of 5 years. Now I'm talking specifically for FY23. So I have audited numbers. They are giving me books of accounts, and they are giving me bank statements. So now, whenever there are cases of these matters of window dressing, so a lot of times what happens is that while uh, in this case, let's say I'm making a sale, inflated sales. So my books of accounts will be showing us, like a particular amount to Mr. X, who is my customer. The bank statement will be showing the payment, but that will not be to Mr. X, but to Mr. Y. Okay. So basically, there will be mismatch in terms of in terms of ledger names in the bank statement and books of accounts. Because maybe I want to inflate a particular for a particular customer or whatever the case may be for the underlying reasons. But basically, to identify such kind of anomalies. So something like in audited financial statements, there is a particular line item or a particular set of expenses given, but the books of accounts will not have those expenses altogether. So, like to identify such mismatches, we tend to review all these three documents parallelly, and because there will be some or the other red flags or kind of a misstatement in these records. All right. Can I move to the next point? Any questions here? Okay. In case of asset misappropriation, review the inventory management system and cash management system. So asset misappropriation in one of a dairy frauds which I've done, where their inventory is milk, cheese, paneer, etc. So a lot of times, what happens is a big chunk of inventory was actually moved out of the system. So, due to whatsoever reasons, management involvement there or not getting into the integrities, but a significant quantum of inventory was moved out of the system. So they had it in their books of accounts. They had some kind of collusion with the auditor or whatever the case may be, or negligence of auditor. So inventory was recorded in the books. There was no physical inventory. We could not find any physical reports, only to realize that that inventory does not exist. And eventually crores of rupees were written off on the books. And, that created a bit of panic among all the stakeholders. So conclusion that whenever such things happen, try to review their inventory management system, cash management system, because you will see something or the other where either the asset or inventory is pulled out of the system. Try to review the controls, the processes, because this is all to do with somewhere or the other with the process gaps, where how the inventory is literally like moved out from the manufacturing plant. All right, so this is the process, and to accompany this, always important that um, for all the suspected employees, we need to do a thorough lifestyle and social media profiling. If you see suddenly in last couple of years, someone having those like luxurious, lavish international trips, or maybe purchase of assets, etc., new cars, something which is not matching with his financial background, then that needs to be considered as a part of asset misappropriation exercise itself. Okay, so examining the data pertaining to vendors, customers, employees for potential instances of kickback, bribery, and corruption. Okay, all right. So over here, vendor, customer, and employees. Again, just like the above. So I'm mentioning vendor, customer, and employee data to be reviewed together. Any logic which you guys can think of? It goes with the additional lines of kickback, bribery, and corruption. So, like if like bribery and corruption, if I just keep that as my backdrop thing, and if I talk about vendors, customers, and employees, how you think it can be correlated? Okay, I will give an example, and hopefully that will uh, answer this specific procedure. So let me put it as a case where uh, I am the employee, okay, and I have a manipulative, fraudulent intent over here. And once again, I am in the same, just to keep it consistent, I am the purchase manager with some reasonable powers. So now what I can do is I can create a vendor, all right, maybe in my relatives or any family member's name, okay, create a entity, and then my company starts dealing with that entity, and most of my purchase amounts are fraudulent in nature. So now if I tend to align the data, like let's say customer master, vendor master, and employee master. So like employee master will all the details of name, sometimes family name, names, contact number, address details, etc. So now if I kind of reconcile the employee master with vendor master in this case, maybe the names will not align, maybe even the phone numbers might not align. But as far as the residence is concerned, place of residence, place of business, some terms on those, like something like bank account numbers. So lots of times these things will align. So you might think that okay, this is like anyone will take care of these things, but trust me, it doesn't happen, because every time like the perpetrators, the fraudsters are not some kind of like completely sophisticated in nature, like completely educated. So they'll just see some gap and they'll perform this transaction, maybe first or second time with some small amounts, then they'll realize it's not, like you're not getting caught, and then the amounts will start getting bigger. So just by performing such basic reconciliation from a vendor master to an employee master, you will be able to kind of trace instances of either a kickback or a kind of a suspicious vendor, and then maybe as a further step you can determine a kickback out of it. Conduct profiling of the suspected individuals, especially those involved in corruption, bribery. So this goes with the previous point, where uh, you know once you identify, like either so Facebook or WhatsApp, or like any other places, you can come across some images that kind of results. A lot of times true caller data is also used, because you tend to purchase a new SIM card for conducting such activity. However, from the true caller, if you just dial the number, you will get the name, and the name will match, either in your name, your wife's name, and you can actually trace it. So these are some aspects of investigations. I will say maybe this is not even half of what things are. So this is just to give us some broad understanding that how usually like procedures are conducted in investigations. Anyone, few seconds, if there is any question, I'll be glad to answer.
Just one question. So you said we also look at the lifestyle changes, if any, of the employees, etc. So how do you actually do it? Like in the sense that is it just by word of mouth or based on some allegation, or do you actually engage an external agency to do it, or how does that happen?
Okay, to answer your question, whatever things you mentioned, everything is there, including external agency. So sometimes, so sometimes we get specific assignments, where the main criteria is to determine the lifestyle check, for a particular employee. So there are instances that, there are some discrete assignments done where, in case if there is an issue with the purchase, so then there is actually a fake and kind of an entity or an individual who will reach out to the purchase guy, trying to get into some conversations. The conversations will be, like typical movie things. The sting operations are undertaken, and that will kind of, in case if you see any hints of, uh, you know, uh, some suspicious conversations there, those are then summarized. Again, this all goes as hearsay, and most of the times this is also not acceptable in the court of law, but
Right.
these are the indicators basis which management takes action. And sometimes, even it goes by threat, like management will make the guy sit that, see, we know, so you want to resign, you want us to sue you, what next? Or, like
Right.
just pay us back the money, that's it.
Right. Okay.
Right. And also for the other part, like how on general level it is seen. So in the first session, I forgot the name of the gentleman. So like I was just having this icebreaker questions at the start. So he did mention about one case where there was some fraud in their entity, and so the employee suddenly started, there was, you could see a change in lifestyle, and a very ordinary employee threw a lavish some birthday party for their kid, where it was too lavish for that particular employee. And the conversations which we started having, so like the company employees are also invited, and a couple of them from the accounts team got a bit suspicious. I don't know, like, how can there be a sudden shift, and on review they unearthed a few fraud, the kind of a fraud over there. So this is also one of the methods by which, so there's no definite, it's like more on logics and things happening around.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Okay. So let's move to the next part. So this was with respect to primarily on some corporate investigations, society investigations, trust investigations. So this is the methodology which is used here. The second one is audit of NTS. So basically the bank audits, something which is emerging a lot in this market these days. In simple raw language, a bank has given some examples like PNB scam, etc., where a bank is given 1,000 crores of loans that is disbursed, and now it is not repaid back, partially repaid back. You have to turn it into NPA. So now bank will appoint a forensic auditor that भाई बताइए हमारे पैसे कहाँ गए. So few steps, standard steps which we do, like whenever we do such forensic audit, that perform extensive desktop searches in order to identify parties having potential undisclosed relationships. So in, at least in consultancy, the terms used is L1, L2, L3 checks. Before I elaborate, anyone wants to elaborate exactly what does this mean?
Where purchases are not necessarily made from the lowest bidder
Okay. So this is on a
or favoring a particular supplier.
yeah, but this is you are absolutely right. But this is a step even before that, like like a very very low hanging fruit. This one, so it's purely on the desktop. So like usually NP audits, usually I mean the NP audits which comes to an external agency. So they are the ones where a company is involved. So what we do is that based on like sites like Zoba Corp and other MCA sites where you get the list of all the directors of the company. So what we do is that based on the target entity, so let's say target entity is having 5 directors, that becomes an L1 check. Now we will investigate further that those directors are holding directorship in how many other companies. So let's say those
Right.
5 directors individually are holding, let's say, director 1 in 3, director 2 in 5, and so on. They're holding directorship in, let's say, another 20 companies altogether. That becomes my L2. And we go to third step. All those entities, those 20 entities, who are the directors in those entities? That is the L3. So L1, L2, and L3, level 1, level 2, level 3 checks. And this entire database, we kind of summarize and tabulate in an Excel. So if it's a small company, it will be like, the 20 companies, but if it's, a kind of a huge company, especially in case of those big scams, like that list actually runs into like 100, 150, 200, and whatnot. So this entire database is then used to perform all other checks, in terms of vendor, customer, employee, like employee may be directly not connected, but indirectly it is connected. Vendor will have a relationship. So my L3 director is actually, falling as my vendor or a customer, so on and so forth. So this database becomes the base, and then we use it for all purchase, sales, expenses, etc., analysis. In real estate, gems and jewelry, like the areas where there is a lot of cash dealings, etc. Like, so these are the industries where we have come across these relationships like numerous times. because land dealings and all is not a cup of cake. So um, like lot of times we see like maybe a far-fetched director, uh, like an employee becoming a far-fetched director, and then company dealing on the employee name with that particular director, so on and so forth. Examine in detail transactions with there is okay, director close relative. Yeah. Yes, okay, understood. All right.
One question, you said if an employee is a director of some L3 company, how will you find out if an employee is a director? If a
I
director is there, fine, I can find out. But if an employee, some driver or some attender is there in a L3
So
company,
I have an employee. So whenever we ask for the data from the
Hmm.
company, so we will be requesting for an employee master. So
Right,
employee master will be like even a clerk will be covered in the employee master.
right,
So like then I have to just like I have an Excel of employee master. I have an Excel of all this database. Then just with some VLOOKUPs and fuzzy lookups,
right,
depending on the quantum of data, this relationships are determined.
right.
Right. All right. Okay. Uh, Examine in detail the transactions with related parties and potential linked parties. So basically, I mean, just based on those like names identified. So now I can't say that why is it not disclosed, because that's not required to be disclosed as per Companies Act or like any other law as such, even AS 18 or anywhere basically. So I cannot put him under the code of law. That is why what we do is in our reports, whenever we kind of comment on the related parties, we put it as two buckets: related parties and potentially linked parties. So we are also not, because the moment we use the word related over there, someone is going to shoot a gun to us that was how can you call related, where it is mentioned in the definition of Companies Act. We are not bound to. So by law they are right, so we have to use some alternate jargons and not call them related parties. So special focus as soon as we identify those parties. Special focus on those type of transactions. To see in terms of documents and all, there is any suspicious transactions or not basically. Now the main part: review the sources of loans, advances, deposits extended to related parties, or the repayments which the target has done to their related parties. Simple language. Uh, if I am forwarding a loan, so like I am an NPA account, that is why my forensic audit is undertaken. So if I am kind of extending a loan to a related party, then what is the source? Because a very, very standard and the most repetitive offense is I take a loan from a big bank, 1,000 crore of loan, then either through some transactions or just in the form of loan for getting a project done through a related party, etc., etc. For whatsoever reasons, there will be 1,000 crore disbursed and 400 crores being transferred to related party. Then if you download the financials of related party, you will realize that there will be some like 50 crores and 100 crores, some weird types of expenses, and the money will be flushed out. Subsidiary will be shut due to lack of performance, and all that 300, 400 crores are gone. In very, very simple language, this is the problem. So one of the key areas, and I'll say at least 7 out of 10 NPA audits, you are going to find an issue over here. So either it can be of 5% or a 50% of my NPS. So if there is a fraud, this is one of the most standard, either a related party or an undisclosed relationship party, but something or the other will be going out from here. Another part, where the funds received were utilized for the stated purpose. So over here, a lot of times capital capex loans, some manufacturing or plant based or something. So I have taken a, let's say, 500 crore loan to purchase couple of fixed assets. Now if I do a fund trail, I see that those amounts are actually not going to the kind of vendors of those fixed assets, but it's either used in generic, again, like kind of loan given to related party or etc., etc. then those cases needs to be investigated. Over here, a lot of times the question comes that boss, okay, I have not utilized for the stated purpose, but I am using it for my working capital itself. Then what's the problem? If this is the question, I am only raising it. Anyone has any specific answer to it? Like, what can be the problem if I do that? What's wrong? That's not a fraud, right? Anyone? Okay, I will only answer it. How it works is that whenever I'm dispersing a loan, I am doing some credibility and a background check. So if I'm doing it for a fixed asset, so the objective over here is like I will evaluate and assess the requirement of the fixed asset, how I'm going to get my money back. But instead of that, if it is used for working capital, so I have not necessarily done the required analysis and backgrounds, for that working capital in terms of my receivables and financial health, etc. So not necessarily that, like I am catering to the requirements of my lender. So that is why it gets very important, because then once you start using it interchangeably, it is one of kind of a red flag, for that account eventually turning into NPA. Identify and highlight round tripping, diversion, or evergreening of funds. Once again, just like the previous slide, before getting into anything, what is the difference between round tripping, diversion, and evergreening of funds? If we know that, only then like exactly we'll know that how it works. Anyone, at least you guys have heard something or the other out of it. This is like one of the most prominent. And if you guys are here, you are definitely interested into these, these issues and these nuances. So at least like each one of you, even if one of the things you guys can mention, like what is round tripping, diversion, everything.
Round tripping is where probably you raise fake invoices and then the payment is routed back to this company. So, so routing back the money to my own company again through
Perfect.
some fake means.
Yes, that's right. Absolutely right. Diversion.
Diversion is like you said, to divert money to some subsidiary or a related entity,
Mm-hmm.
for I mean, it's not a genuine transaction. No.
Mm-hmm.
So, and from there siphoning it off from there somewhere.
Yes, absolutely. All right. And evergreening.
Evergreen. I've heard of this, but not very clear of what it is.
Okay, anyone else if they want to try. So Hemantji, at least for round tripping and diversion, you are absolutely like bang on. Like that's at least that's the basic understanding of round tripping. So for evergreening, if anyone is willing to participate, more than happy, or else I am there to answer. Anyone? All right. Okay. So basically, evergreening is a tactic where a lot of times a banker may also be involved, not necessarily involved. So how it works is that I have disbursed as a banker, I have disbursed, let's say, 1,000 crores of loan to Mr. X. Now, Mr. X and I, in this case, both of us have realized that he is not going to able to repay it. So now I don't want that thing to become an NPA in my books to, kind of disturb my records as a bank. So what mechanism we use is, so now either through my bank or through some subsidiary of mine or through an independent bank altogether. Uh, so 1,000 crore of loan will be disbursed to Mr. X by that new lender, so that the like Mr. X in this case can repay that 1,000 crore back to me. So the liability of 1,000 crores still remains. My NPA is cleared, but however, the issue still remains that I, like basically Mr. X, has not repaid any money. So the liability remains the same, but just the channel differs. And a lot of times it's the related same channel, or maybe like if I've given let's say a capital loan, then maybe I cannot issue a capital. Then I will advance maybe a working capital loan, and then this loan may be repaid, etc., etc. So like methodologies can be different, but the ultimate thing remains that you change the like the terminology of the loan, but the underlying remains the same. Your liability remains the same. So this is one of the biggest red flags and one of those gray areas where lots of times bankers are involved. So in case if you do an assignment with the regulator like CBI, SFIO, then evergreening is something which they will be very specific, to uh, find evidences of evergreening of funds from there, because he will look at all the bankers from his lens as a regulator. So that is with respect to evergreening of funds. Yeah. So whenever we are doing an audit, forensic audit of for NPAs, these are the things which should be considered. Another instances of disposable asset at significant loss or impairment, a bit of self-explanatory. Identify undisclosed party which has not been presented to the lenders for the purpose of creation of charge. Review of any unusual expenditure incurred, an extraordinary provision or loss recorded by the SSE underline, for the detailed review of supporting documentation. So, any examples of unusual expenditures you guys can think of? All right. I put it in a very simple words. The most favorite of ours, something like a bad debt, a very very common. You will see, like payments being made, and sorry, not payments, my bad. Services or products being sold, etc., etc., and then maybe after a year or two, sometimes in the same year, big material amounts are simply just written off from the books. Reason, we tried, we followed up, we couldn't recover the money, so we have written it off. As simple as it sounds, like it's like very low hanging fruit. There will not be any explanation. It's just purely and purely wiped off from the books of accounts. Concentrated purchase, sales, and expense transactions to a particular vendor or a customer. So again, a red flag. Basis is you can deep dive into such transactions with such vendors or customers. So this is with respect to NPS. Any questions, or I can hop to the next slide? Okay. All right. Transaction audit. Any idea exactly when it is done, who does it, when it is applicable? Insolvency and bankruptcy code, just to give a hint. No. All right. So transaction audits are undertaken under Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016. Usually a resolution professional, when a company basically is into CIRP process or IRP process, whatever the case may be, a resolution professional is appointed, and one of the tasks of the resolution professional is to get a transaction audit undertaken from a forensic auditor. So it is part of my IBC proceedings. So you can say that it is kind of a mandatory thing to get a transaction audit done. So now transaction audit, in case I'm assuming now in this case that people are not much aware about it. So over here, transaction audit basically gets covered. So as a forensic auditor, you have to do it under four broad headers: preferential transactions, undervalued transactions, fraudulent transactions, and extortionate transactions. It's also called as PUFE transactions. So there are some specific rules as to like what is called a preferential, what is called an undervalued. But at a generic level, all I can say is that, if you have entered into transactions, where you have made a payment for a transaction, which is favoring to a particular creditor, etc., which is prejudicial, to the interest of the company as a whole, to the stakeholders as a whole, then these all transactions under these respective sections are reported. And you actually, when you finalize the report, either, in the summary or somewhere, you actually, mention that under section 43, let's say 50 crores, under 45, 20 crores, this much, and totally this much amount of amount according to us is, a fraudulent amount under section 43, 45, 66, and 50 of IBC. So the report is expected to be as specific as this, in terms of auditor giving a transaction audit report. Review the banking transactions to understand the movement of funds. This goes in similar to the previous slide. Review of supporting documentation, specifically, basis the vendors and customers which are identified. Uh, uh, like we tend to perform these reviews. So it's similar to the NPA audit, but just that there is specific reporting required to be done under these sections as per IBC. And yeah, as I mentioned, so the transactions undertaken, if they are outside the ordinary course of business, then they needs to be reported under the respective sections. Another is special audit. So I'll just put this slide as a bit of generic, like usually a lot of times there are conversations that special audit karwa diya, ye karwa diya. So usually an agreement between auditors and appointing authorities. All right. Examples, this is the main thing which I wanted to highlight. That examples include review of efficiency of organization, financial mismanagement issues, assessment of input output ratio. So basically, this is specifically for the manufacturing entities, that lots of time the management complains that, as per my SOP and the plan, let's say 10 unit of raw material A is required to make this product, but apparently I am seeing, 15, 20, and 30 units of that raw material being consumed. So they're like, I don't understand, like why is this ratio, and only to realize that excessive purchase is made, but however the inventories, there is inventory theft over there of some big amounts. So uh, such kind of assessment help us, investigate that part. Royalty calculation, liability assessment in case of, matters of disputes and law firms being involved. And yeah, other points are like quite standard, like, this is more of a proactive, like rather than identifying a fraud or, like kind of some trigger or something. This is more of pro like a proactive approach, preventive mechanism. And yeah, transactions with related parties and potentially linked parties should be examined in detail. So that goes without saying for, I'll say, all the four categories of audits which we discussed over here. So that is a broad level discussion on, the review procedures. Anyone, any questions or anything, or else I can move to the next slide for the fourth step.
Yeah, one small question about special audit. So this is actually asked for by the auditor to be carried out by the client, or how is it?
Majority of the scenarios when a management, top level management sees some kind of discount, because they will be having all that summary MIS.
Right.
So whenever they see some unusual variations, they kind of get it done. Sometimes when an auditor, like an internal auditor, statutory auditor, whatever the case may be, if they are doing a review and, they find some specific thing, which you think that it's not in their scope, they need some specialist to kind of get it done, something like this input output ratios.
Right.
So then in that case, auditor may recommend the management to appoint, but ultimately it is appointed by the management itself.
Management. Right. Okay.
Right. Okay. All right then. Moving to the next step, the reporting. Over here, my only objective is I'm not going to mention that how the report is written, what is done. It's just that usually if you see a forensic audit report or if you prepare, what are the elements you have to cover? That's it. So first is objective and scope, like the purpose and etc. Methodology, what we do, what we have discussed basically. Uh, List of observations, we can bucket it into, if there are some 5 employees against which a case is done, then we can do it employee wise. If there is into multiple departments, like purchase, so we can mention about issues in purchases, sales. So depending on the type of like review and scope. Conclusions, I mentioned in the previous session, this thing gets applicable here. So here you cannot say that that the uh, employee appears to be okay, the books appears to be true and fair. So these languages will not be applicable over here. It has to be something which is conclusive in nature. So something like in transaction audit, as I mentioned, you have to categorically mention that what is the amount of fraud under each and every section of IBC. So it is expected to be as specific as this. Recommendations, so basically conclusions is one thing. So a lot of assignments, the objective is not to just conclude, like let's say purchase fraud was determined, so at the end of the day the client will expect you to give recommendations, what are the processes which needs to be fixed, what are systems which needs to be implemented to ensure that this is not recurring. Limitations, something which needs to be handled very carefully, because although how much ever conclusive I try to become, something like an example of an NPA audit. So a lot of data is usually given by the borrower. Like bankers will not have access to all the books of accounts and everything. So let's say I'm not getting books of accounts altogether. So I cannot say that, based that information was not there. So I didn't. So I have to kind of clarify that based on this limitation, these specific 2 or 3 observations, or your it's going as a red flag and not as a finding. Everything else is conclusive. So a very sensitive area, because that usually leads to conflicts between the clients and consulting firms. Exhibits and annexures, as I mentioned, everything has to be backed by evidence. It cannot be generic or purely, I just feel based on this. We get a sense. We are assuming that it is no words like this. It's a fraud, not a fraud. If a fraud, then back it by the evidence. And professional standards that ensure adherence to standards and guidelines, legal and ethics, which needs to be considered over here. So these are broad, like background and basis for the reporting. That brings us to the last step of assignment closure. So I think by now, like the number of times I've mentioned, about legal evidence to be admissible. So that brings to the same point that provide necessary support and assistance to the legal counsel of the client. Because so something like in case of transaction audit, since we are speaking on that. So once you submit the report, the legal team of RP will validate all those evidences and they will file it in the court of law. That this is the amount which now needs to be recovered from this particular target, and all the personal liability, etc. Basically, all those technicalities, court proceedings will begin basis our transaction audit report over there. Respond to follow-up queries, clarifications of the clients. It's not a one-time submission report. As and whenever like those things are taken up ahead, you will be expected to. So a lot of times in the management, especially when there is an MNC company, so you submit the report, uh, and basis that, after a point, uh, another, maybe a hold co or something, if the matters are ultra sensitive, something which is going to affect the goodwill of the company, then you might have to uh, make presentations and reports to the top management. You just cannot say that my liability is restricted or my job is only to submit the report. So that is something which is expected. Easy retriever over here, and then a genuine case where even after 2 years, so especially when there are national mandates, something like PNB scam. So today I have submitted a report to the bank, but 1 year down the line or 6 months down the line, regulator is going to call me up to kind of investigate it further, and like for assistance from their point of view, and so on and so forth. So it is not going to be like a close activity, mail sent, had a word with the client and pack up. So the expectations should be straight there, and sign off and closure of the audit procedures. So this is kind of a concluding step over here.
So one question.
Yes.
Most of these audit reports may be confidential and not in the public domain. So if we out of interest, or if we want to, enhance our knowledge, and so where can we access any of these, even at least maybe the ILFS and things like that, maybe somewhere in the public domain or
Public
NFRA or?
Yes. So how it works is that uh, all the specific nitty-gritties will not be available in the public domain, because
Right.
obviously that is confidential. But as you rightly mentioned, so even for the ILNFS, so the preliminary findings which were kind of unearthed by the auditors, it was Grant Thornton in that case. So those things
Right.
officially released on public domain, because like a lot of stakes were involved. Similarly,
Right.
if you talk about DHFL, in fact, in the previous session, like the modus operandi of each case, like number of accounts, what happened, what not, those things, we got a chance in the previous session to discuss. So basically, everything was from the public domain.
Right.
So it will not be 100%. So maybe not in that report format, the one, the report structure which I
Right.
discussed.
Right.
So it will not be in that format, but the modus operandi, the key issues, like which accounts were used, what was, so maybe, you not get the names of all
Right.
the
Right.
entities,
Yeah.
but yeah, you will get exact understanding that exactly what happened in this case. And I'll be more than happy to connect with you. I can share those specific slides as well, which we had discussed.
Sure, sir.
So
Thank you. Thank you
maybe,
so much.
like that will give you that
Sure. Thank you.
favor into it, right? Okay. All right. So this was about the procedures. I'll just take few minutes to discuss one case study. At least over here, if you guys will participate, it will be something like, like at least for me, I will understand that, some value has been added in this session. So this is a case study. So forensic audit of XYZ Limited. The forensic auditor, while reviewing the bank statement, notices payment of 7 crores to Red Limited from the narration of the bank statement. Now discuss the approach for reviewing the payment made to Red Limited by XYZ. So basically 7 crores of payments is made, while reviewing the bank statement. And obviously this appears to be a kind of a material statement. So as a forensic approach, what would be like, 3, 4, 5 things which you guys can think of, which can be executed to investigate this?
So one is that L1, L2, L3, whether they are a related party or potentially linked party.
Absolutely. It's just a recap of whatever we have done.
Yeah.
So you are absolutely right. So L1, that's the
Test for
first.
us. Yeah.
Yes, that's the first. Like or the other things which we can, like do. Like suppose we have identified a relationship. What next can be done? Like what further things can be investigated?
Deep dive into that to see if there are any further transactions within the company with the same entity.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Yeah.
Relation, nature of transactions, book ledgers, PO, contracts. So by contracts, like do we mean contracts with Red Limited, like review of contracts? Is that what you mean, Mr. Krishna? Yes. Okay. All right. Definitely. Lots of other things. If someone wants to comment, more than happy. Basis, rational advance. Okay. Understood. Okay. So at least what you guys mentioned, it's there, but a bit in addition to that. So review the relationship exactly as Hemant sir mentioned. Underlying reason for making such payment, as Krishnan ji mentioned. Check whether the payment was accounted in books as payment to Red Limit. So this was one point where I was talking about books of accounts, bank statements, and audited statements, like kind of a reconciliation. So this is point where, like if payment is made to Red, so in the books of accounts, is it mentioned as Red or it's some different party altogether? Inspect other transactions with Red Limited, again covered in our discussion over here. and review the underlying supporting documents for such payments. So yeah, that was the case study. Any query, any doubt, more than happy to kind of address the same.
It's clear, Somji.
Okay. Okay. All right then. That's it from my side. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending this session. And in case if you come across any such queries, doubts, anything in the forensics matter, more than happy to address and discuss the same. You can feel free to reach out to me on my cell phone or on LinkedIn or like whatever the case may be, wherever you are comfortable.
Thank you so much, Mr. Somji, for laying out things in such a simple language and making us understand some of the complex issues. And I'm sure even for you to set out these things in such a simple thing is very difficult, because so many complex and complicated things are involved in the audit per se. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emanji. Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot once again. Wish you a great. Yes.
So, Hamji, I want to extend our heartfelt gratitude for your insightful and engaging presentation on forensic audit. And definitely, your expertise and the depth of knowledge you shared were incredibly valuable to the attendees. And the real world examples, the practical advice which you provided, it provides a clear understanding of the complexities and importance of forensic auditing, and will undoubtedly have a lasting impact on our practices. Thank you, sir, for once again for taking the time to share your wisdom and experience with us. And we are looking forward to future opportunities to learn from you. So thank you, and thank you everyone for attending the session.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot, everyone.